a simple majority vote. My understanding is if we delay to the point that the RGS is recalibrated, so to speak, we would put ourselves in a position where it's no longer simple majority, and also would require the input of neighboring communities. And you know, I'm not in favor of that. I want Anmore residents to steer this ship.
Good. You know, there's a couple. Oh, Councillor Cryer.
Thanks, thanks, Mayor McEwen. I just want a couple things for clarification. We're only speaking of Anmore South. That is it. Not any of the rest of the village. We stay the same, correct? And it just gives us the opportunity to control our own destiny on this.
That's correct. Yes. So it's the designation, the rural to urban designation would only be for the Anmore South lands, as identified in the RGS, not the rest of the village. Yeah, I think it's important to just keep speaking to that, because I know that there has been, you know, there's some fear that it's the entire village, and I think it's important for people to know that that's not, we're only speaking of the 50 acres right now. It would be the entire property that is owned by the Gillick at this time, which is approximately 150 acres. The 50 acres you were referring to was their recent proposal that they've since withdrawn, but we would be looking at the full 150 that's owned by the one property owner, but not the rest of the village. Okay, on the other side of Sunnyside. Correct. Perfect. Thank you for clarifying.
Back to you, Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I think it's important to Councillor Cryer's question. It's important to clarify too that not only does it not affect the rest of the village, only this 150 acres, it also doesn't obligate the village to do anything with it. It's merely a designation change, allowing us the flexibility in the future to have the broadest scope of options available to the residents of Anmore. It doesn't mean we have to make any changes. It can be left exactly as it is for the next 50 years. But without it, we're relegated to large properties, 1 acre, RS1. And that, as we know, is completely unsustainable. Not something that will help the village in any way, shape, or form.
I just have Mr. White.
So I'm agreeing with everything Council is saying. I think it's absolutely appropriate. And another important consideration is that the RGS is meant to look to 2050. So it's a 30-year plan. And lots of things have changed in the last 30 years in Anmore and Greater Vancouver area. And I think it's not the best idea to be in a situation where you have to ask the region about that. Even if it changes well into the future, you'll have that ability. Most municipalities have not selected, even though they may have rural land. Most municipalities that have rural land aren't designating it rural. There's very few, I think there's maybe 4 or 5 municipalities in the whole region that have rural land use designation. So it's quite a rare thing. It didn't used to be in the regional growth strategy. It was added in at the last regional growth strategy, where it became more of a zoning oriented regional growth strategy. And I think it can be a real impediment to getting things done in a municipal situation. And I think this is a prudent move on the part of council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Weberink.
Yeah, I just wanted to say there was just one line in the report, and some of this makes sense to me, but some of it doesn't. It says, it is anticipated that the village will be able to minimize costs by utilizing existing data gathered and already shared by the landowner Gillick. I don't know how much of that information we're going to need. I'm certainly not looking at any public input that Gillick led. We'll do our own public input when it does eventually come up for a rezoning or another application. I don't even know how much information from Gillick, what we're trying to do now, is even necessary. I'm certainly in favor of, you know, any sort of technical assessments absolutely use that. They did a lot of mapping of the riparian areas. I know I'm particularly concerned about the riparian areas. But in the grand scheme of things, like we don't know when there's going to be an application. We don't know if Gillick's going to sit on the land for another 25 years. They may. So I just wanted to, make that clear.
Ms. Halliwell?
Yeah, so thanks, Councillor Weverink. Through the chair, it would only be the technical aspects of the information. So the raw data that we would use that we would otherwise have to collect. There's no intent of using any of the public input on what had previously proposed in any of the sort of iterations that Gillick and formerly Brilliant Circle Group had put forward. That will be what we undertake as a village, and that's all we'll be considering. It's more just the technical data that we'll have to supply to Metro Vancouver that's already been collected. So we don't want to essentially waste the money to do that again when it's available.
Right, makes sense.
Good. I just had a couple comments. Some may deem it a bit of a history lesson in regards to these lands, but I'm going to do my best shot here is to give a time frame for those people listening as to how we got to where we are right now. I can tell you about 12 or 13 years ago, sitting in the old village hall, when at the time it was Devon Estates, owner of the real estate arm of Imperial Oil, who came forward and talked about these lands, and everybody in the village at the time, former Mayor Weinberg, Councillors Piemonte, Councillors Settegreen, myself, we all commented about that this was a special area, something very distinct to Anmore, and something that we wanted to really, that was going to be different. Former Mayor Weinberg quite often referred to it as the possibilities of a high-tech center or some sort of a educational area and stuff like that. Well, none of that would have been possible if that night we didn't approve a vote to make this a special study area. And there was a lot of discussion after we made that vote in regards to a special study area in the regional growth strategy as to, what are we? What is this area? Are we semi-rural? And I can tell you right now, as I look at the 23 participants on this Zoom call right now, we'd probably get 23 different opinions of what semi-rural is. And that was really what the problem in Metro Vancouver wrestled with this situation as well. So they said, you know what, you're not rural, you're not urban, you're a special study area. And I would argue that, our neighboring Port Moody at one point probably was rural, and they had to, as they evolved over the 60 years has changed, they had a special area as well that about 4 years ago was the former Flavel mill that was no longer a viable operation that just switched over. And I was there at Metro Vancouver when former Mayor Clay made the proposal that, the mill was no longer viable and we could make an incredible waterfront, vibrant community here. And Metro Vancouver got right behind it. And, that's where we're at right now. I know there's a bit of, they're sorting out the details of it, but the premise of taking it out as of a special study area is to allow the opportunity to do whatever the municipality wants to do in the future. They could decide to keep it the same. The Iuko lands could remain property where we could allow a density up to about 1.8 units per acre. So, we're talking about 350 homes. We're not, we don't know what that is, but I do know that, the regional growth strategy right now is going under a review. And from my feelings and what I'm hearing, as I'm fortunate to sit on the planning board, is they want to kind of sort of exercise a lot of these special areas out so they don't have to deal with them down in the future. They want to much more constrain and consink areas of development in that and what you're doing. The reality is that this area is 8 minutes away from a SkyTrain station. So it has changed significantly just with my years being on council. This really getting back to what Ms. Weinberg's initial comment and public input, this truly is where the conversation starts with the community. And really, we want to stay at the 10,000 foot level. We don't want to talk about, what sort of buildings could be there or what sort of industry could be there or schools or high-tech centers. All we want is to make sure that we have the ability in the future to be able to make our own choices without having to go to a weighted vote at Metro Vancouver where it could be 75, 80% weighted in regards to other communities having other uses that they may want to take advantage of and we being left on the side. I think that it's important to realize that. I think that this is a great function right now. I've heard from so many people that talk about, well, why aren't we telling developers what we want? Well, this is part of that discussion that we're about to start to enter into. And I think it's really, really important. We, last night we had a finance committee, and while we are in a great financial situation, there's been a lot of heavy lifting over the last 10 years and a plan to get us where we are. And we all realize, and it's part of our strategic plan, that we need to diversify our housing stock to make more of a complete community, but we also need to diversify our tax base. And we also need to be a little bit more environmentally conscious. And that could mean having some small retail nodes down there in regards to be able to, so that we don't have to go down the hill and get in our vehicles and stuff like that. We all talk about having the amazing trail networks that are in here. And I see those even being accentuated even more with this area of the village because it's so accessible. So I think this is a great step forward to start the conversation going in the community. I think that I forget, there was a comment that was passed on to me about somebody commenting that this is a pretty major decision. It really isn't, because we already have properties in here in the village, i.e. Anmore Green and Countryside, that are already proper areas that I'm very, very proud of and are part of this community that really add a lot of life and vibrancy. I know myself, I certainly wouldn't want to have a community of all 1 acres where you certainly have people that are coming and going through their gates every day, and you don't even engage with your neighbors. It's so refreshing to be able to go to these areas and see kids playing hockey on the streets and walking down, and young families. We have a volunteer fire department that requires, a demographic of younger people coming in that want to get engaged in this to be able to protect all of our households. So the diversity is essential. And I think that this could give us a great opportunity, and it just opens up whatever we want to do in the future. So with that being said, I'm sorry for rambling on so long and giving you a bit of a history into where we are, but I'll just see if there's any more further comments. Councillor Trowbridge.
To that comment about this being a really weighty decision, it's a more weighty decision to do nothing and be locked into an uncontrollable environment that is, not really functional long term. The important thing to remember, again, I keep going back to it, is it's a designation change giving us opportunity to do what we wish. It's not a heavy decision. If you consider the decision to give yourself all the options you could possibly have weighty, then it's confusing to me. Nothing changes other than we have the ability to control our own destiny without neighboring communities chiming in. I think it's a bigger decision to not take that step.
Good. Okay. Any other? Okay, I see none. So we have, it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. We'll now move on to the 11C, the CAO forum approval. Ms. Halliwell.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. So yes, my apologies for the late item here. We just got notification that this year's CAO forum is not surprisingly going to be held virtually this year. They're going to offer 4 different training opportunities throughout the year for the registration fee. And as has been asked in past, I'm bringing it forward to seek council's approval for me to attend the forum. The cost will be quite a bit less given there's no travel involved. And the registration fee is $500. So the recommendation that I have is that council approve the Chief Administrative Officer to attend the 2021 virtual CAO forum put on by the LGMA.
Someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to the request for funding for tree removal.
Thank you. Yes. As was mentioned earlier by Mayor McEwen, the Finance Committee meeting was held last night, And expected to come out of it was a referral from Finance Committee to Council in relation to a report on the agenda for tree removal. The tree removal is in association with the construction of the Anmore Community Hub, and it requires the removal of 67 trees from the building site in order to facilitate the construction. So the Finance Committee resolution from last night, which I'm seeking ratification from Council, is that Finance Committee, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me. Finance Committee award the tree removal contract to Treeco for a total amount of $27,195, and that it be funded from the capital reserve, and that Council allocate an overall budget of $30,000 to that project in order to cover any unforeseen costs as well.
Okay, could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded? Seconded. I'll open up for any council debate. I know we debated this a little bit last night as we went through the report. It's a pretty extensive report for those wanting to look at it. It may be a little alarming, the amount of trees that are coming down, but quite a few of them are itemized as 2-inch round holly trees, alders, and such as that. So, Councillor Weberink.
Yeah, actually, just to sort of echo what you said, Mayor McEwen, that a lot of them are very insignificant, and a lot of them, the report included with the Finance Committee was very extensive, and it actually gives justification for every tree that's coming down and why. And there is a significant amount left up that's going to kind of frame the new village hall. I think it'll actually be quite nice. So, I mean, as a guy that's always trying to save trees, I kind of accepted it. I'm probably the one that's most resistant, but you know, as you said, a lot of the trees are, you know, holly trees and scrub trees and very small. So.
Mm-hmm. I think the other, just so for those that didn't get a chance to really spend much time looking at the design of the Village Hub, we also want to open up some of those trees along the Sunnyside corridor, though, so that as people drive down East Road, they get it'll be very presented to them that this will be the Village Hub, and you'll be able to see it really well from both angles, East Road as well as Sunnyside. So, okay, seeing no further questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, we're now on to the Mayor's report. Just a few things. We just had our meeting last week. This past Saturday was the 30th. On the 30th was the Chamber of Commerce Business Awards. I attended briefly initially, and then I don't know, I had some technical difficulties, but I know Councillor Cryer will update us on that. We had a great Finance Committee yesterday that will be posted on our webpage, and it really goes through all the intricacies of the village's finances and the current state of affairs. And I can tell you that we would be the envy of a lot of municipalities in this province as to the prudence and the planning that we've done in regards to our financial picture. Earlier today, myself and council had a meeting with the RCMP and the new superintendent, Keith Bramall. It was a great conversation. We conveyed a lot of conversation as to how we need more information to be able to pass on to our citizens in regards to events that have been happening as of late within our village. They can attest that they are doing everything they can. They will confirm that we have a very, very low crime rate in the province, or sorry, in the municipality, and that a lot of these issues that are arising are not what people are sort of on social media sort of leaning towards explaining. Some of them are misunderstandings, some of them are different situations that are actually false alarms. So I just wanted to pass that on. And then I've also at Metro Vancouver, we are on a COVID task force, and I've been advocating quite profusely for our first responders in the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department getting COVID shots expeditiously, so that we can, make sure that they are well protected in regards to taking care of our citizens. So I'll now move it on to the councillors' reports. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. Yes, Finance Committee, RCMP meeting, both very good conversation. And further to your comment about the Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards, I was able to attend the entire virtual ceremony, and it was excellent. Certainly not the same as being there, as we've all done in many years past, but they did an excellent job. There were no local businesses nominated. The committee did consist of Celia Chang, who is from our community. She did an excellent job organizing it, and it was very well done. They did a great job. The chamber is pivoting with everything that's going on very well, and it showed in the quality of the virtual award ceremony. And that's all I have.
Good. Good. Any other council reports? I know it's only been a week. Okay, we'll move on to the Chief Administrative Officer's report.
Thanks very much, Mayor McEwen. So just a reminder that we're having our BEAR presentation as part of a joint Public Safety and Environment Committee meeting on February the 10th at 7 o'clock. We're asking residents to register just so we have an idea of numbers. However, the link will also be posted on the joint agenda that's published on the website ahead of that presentation as well. And if you would like to register, you can do so at village.hall@anmore.com. We had made the decision to have our village hall closed to the public through until the public health orders are reviewed, which was going to be February the 5th. At this time, we're not expecting any changes. So in all likelihood, the village hall will remain closed to the public except for by appointment. And those appointments, if you do need to come in and see a staff member, can also be made at village.hall@anmore.com. And we've got all the appropriate safety protocols in place for when people do need to meet in person. And then I just wanted to mention I participated on a call with regional mayors and CAOs last week with Minister Osborne, who is the new Minister for Municipal Affairs. And she alluded to the fact that grant announcements may be happening this month. So I'm hopeful that our Anmore Community Hub grant will be potentially on that list for announcements through the ICIP grant that we made last year. And finally, as was mentioned, we had a finance committee meeting last night where the draft budget was referred back to council for consideration. And my intent will be bringing that forward to hopefully see through adoption in the month of March so we can get going with some of the projects that were listed there. And that's it for me.
Good. Okay. We'll now move on to some information items. We have committee, commission, and boards. We have the minutes of the Community Engagement, Culture, and Inclusion Committee held on November 12th. And the minutes of the Public Safety Committee held on December 9th. I'll now open up to public question period.
Mayor McEwen?
Yes.
I don't see the minutes for the Community Engagement and Culture and Inclusion Committee, nor the Public Safety Committee. Did anyone? Am I just...
Councillor Creer, you are correct. I don't have that in my agenda package either. My apologies. So we'll ensure that those minutes are attached to the next agenda as well, and that they get posted appropriately.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah, thank you. Sharp eyes. Good.
It's white glasses.
Any questions?
I don't see anyone with their microphones off or their hands raised at this time.
Good. Okay, well then I'm going to call for an adjournment. Moved, seconded. Oh, I have Lynn Ellen with her hand up.
All right, Ms. Burton, you may unmute yourself and ask your question.
I presented this question a little bit earlier, but wasn't allowed to. My question has to do with going to public referendum. Not a single person that I've talked to supports either the urban designation of Ioko lands or the size and costs of the community hub. Will council go to referendum to seek unfettered input from the people who are on the...
Hello? Oh, we've lost you, Ms. Burton. Hello?
I think the gist of the question was whether or not council would be going forward for a referendum for either the Anmore Community Hub or the RGS amendment.
Well, speaking of the RGS amendment, in essence, we are going to public referendum with all the engagement that we just voted and approved to move forward with. So we will be having a ton of public consultation on that, open houses regarding that and the effects it can have. Regarding the village hub, we will not be going to referendum. That was part of the our strategic plan. We've had this in the works for many years. We've actually supplied the financing, so there is no need to go to referendum regarding any sort of financing issue with the new village hub. Any other public questions? Or anybody else want to answer any of the questions, or no?
I don't see anyone else who's raised their hand or unmuted their microphones either.
Okay, Ms. Halliwell, just regarding the RGS amendment, when will that process, the public engagement, start in that? Just what is the proposal?
Well, there has been highlights included within the report itself. And now that we have the direction, I'll be sitting down with our communications consultant at Michelson Consulting to come up with a more definitive plan, which will obviously then be communicated to both council as well as the public to ensure that we're offering many different avenues, particularly given COVID, to provide feedback.
Good. Okay. Then we'll, not seeing anybody else, I'll move to conclude. Move to adjourn. Someone to second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I appreciate it. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, and everybody stay safe. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.